Okay, we're live.
Well, good afternoon. Today is March 27, year 2001-9 already, and it's nice to have you join me again. Before I forget this, I was reminded to tell you that please share these podcasts, these videos, with your friends, and maybe we'll find some more bass players out there. How are you? Today's a nice day in New York. The sun is shining in this city for about 25 minutes before the snow comes. Uh, I just got in from Phoenix with the Lewis Nash event. He's a drummer friend of mine who's fantastic, and he has a space out in Phoenix called the Nash. And it's like a community center with a really 125-seat jazz club that has a great piano. Try to get out there and take a look. Okay, you know, last week, last talk we had, I issued someone asked me about looking for a teacher. And I sat down and gave it some thought because it never occurred to me that needs some help. So I sat down and I issued 10 questions that I would think that students who are looking for a teacher might want to give some thought to when they start investigating teachers as they move from neighborhood to neighborhood or move from their high school to a college music program. So I put these 10 questions out there and I got a lot of response. Some curious as to why I would do that. To them I would say it's necessary to know what you're walking into and to see if you're compatible with the teachers at hand and what are their standards. What do they do? Having read through all these questions I got, I picked 5 of someone who sent to me, these are questions that came up through them by way of reading my 10 questions. So let's spend about a few minutes before we pick up the bass again, see if it still works on Wednesday. Someone read the questions for me and I'll try to answer in 25 words or less. Here's the first one.
Question number 1. Why do you teach? When did you begin teaching, and at what point did you feel qualified to do so?
I have a music degree with a minor in teaching from the Eastman School of Music, 1959. I've always been interested in sharing information and how to share. What's the best way to share a concept? And what's the best way to instill discipline in students who know that you got to have a disciplined practice routine? I've been a student for a very long time. As I finished my last class last night playing Rosamond Malone and Donald Vega in the trio setting. And I think it's important for people who are in my age category to realize that it's time to make themselves available to more students who want to understand the history of the music, who want to understand how the bass operates. And when you have this desire to share this information, teaching is a nice and immediate outlet to helping people who want to find out how do you do what you do. At some point, I never wanted that idea to happen. I liked the magic, just not knowing what's going to show up every night. But that's kind of silly after my age group. So I'm happy to share with you whatever my thoughts are. I think that's enough to give me an idea of how I teach.
Number 2, how do you go about amplifying your bass? This is something in particular that I've been struggling with, how to get the truest sound from my instrument and how loud I should be, and how to balance the highs and the lows to get an authentic sound. I also believe I need to find a new amp, and I'd like to hear more about an advice on that process.
Okay, now I think the first thing to realize that all amplifiers do, any amplifier, is amplify what's put in. And the obvious response is, what does that mean? That means that you got to put something in to get something out. It only amplifies the quality what's going there. The quantity is what that does. I think first thing you should do is just go and try out various, if they will allow you to do that, try out various smaller amps, because you got to carry the amp and the bass from point A to point B. There's some newer models out that are made from these small cylinders that weigh like 6 or 7 pounds. What I did when I first started getting involved with amp was go to an engineer in the studio to have him explain to me exactly what these knobs did. As it turns out, these knobs are so complicated to a beginner of amplifying like I am, or like I was. It took me a while to kind of get the grasp of what these machines actually do to the sound I think is mine, you know. So the first thing you do is find an engineer who will sit down and talk to you what an amp really does, and explain to you the highs and the lows and the mids and how to EQ it. The next thing you got to do is have a good pickup. There are several great ones on the market, and I'm not sure how I'm about to say this, but I used a David Gage pickup that's really a nice one. I've used it for 10, 15 years now, and I highly endorse that as a choice of starting as a sound that gives you exactly what you're putting in. I recommend that you have patience, because it's a very expensive opposition to change from one amp to another, and if you can try them out in the store, that's a good choice of having you have a serious idea of what they really do. Some of you know that there's a cloud over the bass scene that how to say this, that recommends not amplifying the bass, and that is right now the bane of my existence. For you who are my age group and know what that means. The only way I can characterize my feelings in a public manner is that I want the guy who's sitting row 25F be able to hear my notes as well as the guy who's sitting in 1B. And I think that those players who insist on playing without amplifiers are missing a chance to have the audience share in their efforts and develop the band. Number 3.
Number 3, in regards to lessons, how many lessons would your schedule allow? How long are they, and or what is the cost of a lesson? How do you feel about students recording lessons?
I'll go backwards. My students don't record. I insist that they bring a notebook and something called a pencil, and write down as I explain to them what the process is for the current lesson and what issues they have to work on. I think that once they write this concept down and have to use their own language skills to put in words that they can understand day after tomorrow or a month after tomorrow, they'll understand what I was trying to get them to understand even a month after the fact. So I think the tape recorder, it kind of gives them a false sense of not giving me their undivided attention, and that doesn't work for me. What was the next one I forgot?
How long are the lessons?
The lessons are an hour. I think that most students, when the lesson gets really deep, really concentrated and really involved, I think that most students and teachers can handle it at one time and really feel comfortable. It's 1 hour. Anything else is kind of walking on water, and I'd never try to get past the hour. I think it's just too much for everybody. The cost, I'm kind of, what's the right word? I'm not negotiable, but I have a fee that I'll tell you if you get the lessons going.
What are your views on professionalism? In addition to the basics, what are some smaller, less apparent details that make a player professional? And also, what are some things that scream, I'm an amateur?
Well, you know, I've been playing for a long time, and I've been known to be the first guy, excuse me, I'm always known as the first guy on the gig. And that means that the gig is at 8 o'clock. I'm walking in that door at 7. I want a chance to get my bass set up, make sure the amp is still there, still working order, that everything is as it was when I last left it. I insist on that kind of preparation. I always wear a suit. I think that announces to the audience, however they're dressed, that this guy is coming to work. And I think the more casual atmosphere kind of lends itself to a different kind of audience intensity and audience attention. I think some of the things that may scream you are an amateur is have a sign saying, this is my gig. You know? Or insist that your friends always have the best table, or that your friends come every night free. I mean, the fact of the matter is, part of your salary comes from the amount of people who come in that club door, the door charge. And I think people don't really understand that process who say they're your friends. Let me come by here, sit, man. Well, it costs $35. Well, let me not come by here, sit. Okay, you know, that's part of our salary. And an amateur musician is so eager to have a following and so eager to impress his friends, he doesn't realize that these friends are in fact infringing on his salary and his partners. So I think it's like a good sign that when that happens, that the bassist is really not comfortable being responsible for telling his friends, no, you have to pay. I think with that, one more question?
We have an interesting question from Raymond Duray.
Okay.
He says, regarding jazz bowing techniques, could you please give us your thoughts and which book to purchase and when to use the bow?
Well, there are so many expensive brands. Right now, if you're interested in having the bow, I'd suggest you just start out by looking for a carbon fiber. It's almost indestructible. They'll make great quality sticks. And I have 3 of the first ones made that are really fantastic. So I would suggest that you do that. I think a good bow for a good book for beginning players who want to use how to bow works is get Samantha Book 1. Page 9, 10, and 11 are the early stages of playing the bass. And of course, those Samantha books, both 1 and 2, are primarily for arco players. But page 9, 10, and 11 are really the essence of how to make the bow work. One more advice, if you happen to have a classical teacher in your neighborhood who's interested in having a jazz player learn bow techniques, they're just as curious as how we do what we do as they are what we do. So it's a good chance to exchange ideas and expand another relationship. So I would recommend you get to a classical bass teacher. Having said that, I know some jazz bass players who have great bow techniques. Christian McBride really plays it well. Richard Davis did while he was alive and while he was well in playing. Lately, Al Atkinson had really good bow skills. I made some nice records with the bow. That's not my forte because players who come to me want to know how to play bass time, and I'm pretty good at that too. So, you know, speaking of being pretty good at that, one of the emails I got at this session was how you make stuff out of your head, and how do you just pick up something and jam, you know. Well, I kind of like I don't really jam anymore. I've kind of out-jammed myself. So I think what I'll do is this. I'll ask my announcer friend to give me 4 notes, and we'll see if I can make something happen out of 4 notes for about the next 3 minutes.
Let's do E-A-D-G.
Well, I can tune the bass with that. We'll see how far I can get. Don't go away. E, A, D, G. E, A, D, G. So, it's all possible. Just a reminder again that I've been asked to remind you to suggest that you please feel free to share this video with your friends and no telling who might show up at your house. Say, hey man, let's compare this video. This is my room here, and I will happy to invite you here for the next podcast. Maybe we'll be outside, but let's see if the green comes back, you know. But I think that it's all good. Thank you for coming by to share this with this room. EADG. See what you can come up with. And send me an 8-measure phrase using that as a theme. Thanks. Bye.